These aren't empty, meaningless words. Listen carefully and try to apply them to your life. You'll see amazing changes happen. It's just hard to believe. Seeing how intensely your thoughts manifest, almost like magic, can be very surprising. Even if you apply just a little bit, you'll definitely see the benefits. Take a look around you right now. Everything you see was once just a faint thought in someone's mind. Most of us believe that life is something that happens to us, but life is actually a silent reflection of our inner world leaking out. Bruce Lee didn't just see this truth as a philosophy. He lived it with every cell, proving how the mind is an architect that constructs reality. He knew that victory was won in the dark rooms of the mind long before any sweat was shed, and that the body was merely a shadow following this absolute decision. When he said, "As you think, so shall you become," he was explaining how our intention in the quantum field aligns the atoms. If you keep playing the story of a victim in your mind, the universe will never hesitate to present you with the scenes where you will play that role. However, when you start to see yourself as a master, a creator, you will witness the seemingly closed paths melting away one by one before you. Your thoughts are electrical signals thrown into the universal void, and these signals must eventually take on a concrete form and appear before you. In this lesson of the Bruce Lee Academy, you will stop being a victim dragged by random thoughts and transform into that conscious observer who designs their own reality. Remember, what defines who you are is not the dusty pages of the past, but the dominant image you insistently nurture in your mind right now. It is time to enter that secret workshop of your mind, for whatever you build there, you will embrace in the outside world. The mental blueprint and quantum focus. Long before Bruce Lee entered a fight, he would live out and finish every second of that fight in his mind. Many of us want big changes in our lives, but the blueprint in our minds still looks like the plans for an old, broken-down house. Quantum physics tells us that when an observer focuses on something, possibilities that were waveforms until that moment collapse into a particle, into concrete matter. Thus, Bruce's words, "As you think, so shall you become," are the simplest version of this scientific truth. If you are constantly thinking about failure, illness, or loneliness in your mind, you are actually instructing the universe to materialize this scenario. Most people cannot escape the vicious cycle in their lives because they focus more on what they don't want than what they do want. However, the mind is like a projector. Whatever film you put inside, you are forced to watch it on the screen of life. When Bruce Lee looked in the mirror every morning, he didn't just see a man, he saw a world legend because he had already engraved that image in his mind. If you are not satisfied with who you are today, you must first tear up and throw away that inner image you harbor of yourself. Your thoughts are frequencies vibrating in the quantum field, and similar frequencies always attract each other. A mind thinking about poverty can never notice abundance because it is not broadcasting on that frequency. In martial arts, before Bruce repeated a technique thousands of times, he would watch the perfect version of that technique in his mind thousands of times. This is not just a process of dreaming, but an act of giving a new command to your cells. What is in your mental blueprint today? Fear or an unshakable determination? The universe does not respond to your words, but to the dominant emotions and thoughts behind those words. If you don't feel like a champion in your mind, it is impossible for you to hold a trophy in your hand. Quantum focusing is about completely silencing the noise of the outside world and locking onto the person you want to become. At the Bruce Lee Academy, we call this creative visualization. Remember that matter is the slave of the mind, not the other way around. Now close your eyes and redraw that blueprint, because the universe is waiting for your instructions. The chemistry of belief and biological reality. Bruce Lee was one of the masters who best knew how a mental state could instantly transform the body. A thought is not just an abstract concept floating in your mind. Every thought triggers a real chemical reaction in your body. When we say, "As you think, so shall you become," this is not just a spiritual claim but a biological necessity. The moment you think about fear or inadequacy in your mind, your brain starts pumping stress hormones into your blood. Bruce Lee knew that a fighter's greatest enemy was not their muscles, but the negative thoughts that paralyzed them. If you define yourself as weak, your cells take this command as an order, and your biology begins to collapse to confirm this belief. However, when you think of yourself as invincible and strong, your brain secretes miraculous chemicals like dopamine and serotonin that repair your body and give you energy. Bruce used the body merely as an instrument of the mind in the process of self-actualization. Everything you believe is a signal sent to your DNA, and your genes express themselves according to these thoughts. Modern epigenetics today proves what Bruce Lee sensed years ago. Your thoughts can go beyond your genes. You are not just a victim of the genetic heritage you received from your parents. You are whoever you choose to think you are every day. If you constantly imagine a sickly old age, your body starts building that old age right now. Bruce Lee's speed and power came not just from training, but from sending the message, "I am the fastest," to his cells every single second. Every judgment in your mind, every "I can't" word, creates a blockage in your biological system. Therefore, you must be more meticulous in choosing your thoughts than you are in choosing the food you put on your plate. Because food affects your body for a day, but your thoughts restructure your cells every second. At the Bruce Lee Academy, we accept the mind as the greatest pharmacy and the most powerful laboratory. If you want to equip yourself with the chemistry of a champion, you must first put on the mental patterns of that champion. Belief is the architect of your biology, and whatever you believe, the chemistry of that belief circulates in your veins. Now, what command will you give to your own biology? Fear or absolute power? Thoughts as habits and character building. When Bruce Lee said, "Do not stop thinking about something, for that thought will one day turn into action and action into character," he was actually explaining the hidden algorithm of destiny. Rather than the thousands of thoughts that pass through our minds in a day, it is those dominant thoughts that persistently return that are the foundation of our reality. If you whisper to yourself every day that you are inadequate, this whisper will eventually become an unshakable wall in your mind. In the quantum field, broadcasting on the same frequency constantly is the surest way to solidify that frequency in the physical world. Bruce believed that character was not just a way of behaving, but a mental stance that had become a habit. A fighter's discipline is hidden not just in morning runs, but in the effort to keep the mind under control at every moment. Most people try to change the results in their lives but never touch those ingrained thought patterns that create those results. However, if you want to change the fruit, you must first clear the roots of the tree, those deep beliefs. Bruce Lee's unique stance and charisma stemmed from the fact that he kept the truth of "I am a legend" alive in his mind every second. If you want to make a revolution in your character, you must first learn to take control of your thought traffic. If you keep a thought in your mind long enough, that thought creates a physical path, a highway in your neurons. For Bruce, the mind was like a sacred garden that needed to be cleaned and arranged every day. If you do not plant the seeds of your own intentions in this garden, the weeds of the outside world will invade your mind in no time. Building oneself is about giving up random thoughts and anchoring to that one thought that will carry you to your dreams. Even the simplest judgment you make about yourself today is waiting its turn to become a part of your future character. Your character is the accumulated state of those silent sentences you think in hidden corners. At the Bruce Lee Academy, we see thought not just as an idea, but as the raw material of character. If you think you are ordinary today, the world will never open an extraordinary door for you. However, when you fill your mind with the determination of a master, your character will also have to adapt to this high frequency. Remember, whatever you continue to think about, you have no choice but to transform into that thing. Thoughts sealed with emotion, the fuel of manifestation. When Bruce Lee practiced a move, he didn't just include its physical form. He also incorporated the intense emotion that move felt. Because just thinking is like a car without fuel, it won't take you anywhere. The real power that turns thought into reality is emotion. For an intention to materialize in the quantum field, that thought must be wrapped in intense gratitude or excitement, as if it were happening right now. The phrase, "as you think, so shall you become," only fully works when you place an emotional seal on that thought. When Bruce dreamed of being a world star, he wasn't just thinking about it. He felt the pride and power that success brought in his entire body. Many people think about being rich, but because their dominant internal emotion is lack and fear, they attract more lack into their lives. The universe does not communicate with your words, but with that magnetic emotional frequency radiating from your heart. If you combine a thought with an intense emotion, that thought is no longer just an idea. It becomes an order engraved in the universal plan. What Bruce Lee called emotional expression was the ability to fit that massive internal energy into a single punch or a single word. Your thought of being a champion only begins to vibrate in the quantum field when it merges with the feeling of victory that a champion feels. Emotion is the hidden magnet that pulls thought into the material world. Everything thought with fear quickly brings the feared thing into your life because fear is one of the most intense emotions. Therefore, Bruce Lee cleared his mind of fear and placed an unshakable feeling of self-assurance there. When you imagine something, you must already rehearse how you will feel when it comes true. If your thought is weak and emotionless, it gets lost in the noise of the universe. However, a thought fed with passion will overcome all physical obstacles like water piercing through rocks. At the Bruce Lee Academy, we determine our intention with our logic but seal it with that glowing fire in our hearts. Thought is the architecture, and emotion is the cement that holds that architecture up. What emotion will you add to your greatest dream today? Remember, only the things you think, are, and feel in all your cells will become your reality. From thought to action. Aligned movement. Bruce Lee was not a dreamer who just sat and fantasized. He was a master of application who transformed the thought in his mind into physical action within seconds. The final link in the law of as you think, so shall you become, is to take that brave step aligned with your mental intention. When you seal a possibility in the quantum field, the universe opens the paths to this new reality, but it is you who must walk those paths. If you think of yourself as a master, your movements, your gaze, and your daily routine must also carry the weight of a master. Many people dream big in their minds, yet their actions still bear the traces of that old, fearful version of themselves. For Bruce, there was no gap between thought and action. The moment an idea was born, its physical reflection began simultaneously. Aligned movement is not forced effort. It is the natural result of that new identity you already believe you have become in your mind. If you possess an unshakable strength in your mind, your body will instinctively find the correct techniques to express that strength. Action is the signature of thought in the physical world, and without this signature, the creation process is not complete. Bruce Lee would throw every punch thousands of times to align it with the thought of absolute speed in his mind. Your actions, too, must not contradict the greater you that you nourish in your mind. If you take the steps of someone afraid of failing with a mind that believes in winning, you are sending mixed signals to the universe. Thought charts the path, and action is the engine of the vehicle moving on that path. At the Bruce Lee Academy, we do not separate thought from action, because we think like the person we want to be, and move like the person we are. When you truly think something, you no longer try to do it, you simply become it. Every small step you take is a part of that big picture in your mind, and every movement is another way of saying, this is who I am. The higher your thought, the more effective and unstoppable your actions will be. Bruce Lee's legend was born from proving that massive belief in his mind with a kick in 1/10 of a second. Now ask yourself, what action would that new person in my mind take today? Remember, to become the person you think you are, you must also claim that person's courage and movements. A thought that does not transition into action is just a fantasy, but a thought combined with aligned movement changes your destiny forever. The mastery of mind. We didn't just go through a lesson here today, you took the key to your own reality into your hands. Bruce Lee brought the world to its knees not with his muscles, but with that unshakable state of being in his mind. Now you know that every event that happens to you, every person you meet, and every result you experience is the fruit of a thought you once hosted in your mind. Leave behind thinking small of yourself, believing in impossibilities, and living in the shadows of the past, right here, right now. The law of as you think, so shall you become, is not a wish. It is the most precise mathematical rule of the universe. Break that old, rusty mirror in your mind and hang the image of that magnificent person you want to become. You are not a victim. You are a massive power weaving your own destiny with your thoughts every second. When you leave this lesson of the Bruce Lee Academy, the world will no longer look the same to you, because you are no longer looking at the world with old eyes. Be the master of your own mind, sharpen your thoughts like a master's sword, and watch with admiration as life changes shape before you. Remember, the universe is not concerned with what you deserve, but with what you make real in your mind. Now go and start living that greatest dream in your mind, because the moment you thought it, it already began to happen. For now, remember, whatever your mind can imagine, your soul is capable of creating. Until the next lesson, be the guardian of your thoughts and the architect of your future.